Now, everybody, quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, all. It is a delight to have everybody here. Going to be a big day. Got Kim in the mix, of course. Just fresh.
Kim, how are you?
Off of the Nikki Maduro show. Great to have her here. Tony is here. Tony, we had issues with the levels yesterday. Is everything better today, or is it better,
today.
sir? Yeah. Today, is it okay?
Sounds great.
Okay. All right.
Chat?
Tony, thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
We do have a terrific show, and we're going to start right out of the chute hot with the Pulitzer Prize winner, David Cay Johnston. I'll get to him in a second. Then David Katz is coming on, the former federal prosecutor. We'll get the state of the state. We'll weigh in on that, the decision by that appeals board on the Voting Act and how that might be very much vulnerable, might be the word to use. We'll talk to David about that and also about a number of other issues sort of related to legal matters. And David Cay Johnston may want to weigh in on some of that as well. Jefferson Graham talks about the state of AI and whether this chat GPT thing and the changes there, shake up and maybe a free fall in the company affects any of us in any substantial way. So we've got a lot to do. We'll get into it. Before I begin, if it pleases the court, anybody, what is this? Already in a super chat? Oh, the super chat and super stickers are live. We're a crowd-funded show, so we appreciate your support in that way. I have my credibility glasses on, so I can read.
That must mean they're fixed now.
No, these are they're temporarily fixed, but they're not actually fixed. I'm waiting on the new ones. Huge thanks to Mark, Kim, Tony, and Albert. We're incredibly thankful for you all. Have a great mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce day. Thank you, Ren, for being sensitive to my vegan sensitivities. There is no dead bird on my table. But I love that you gave us a 20 and that you gave us some... Look, without you people supporting us, I mean, the community of all of the you peoples, we wouldn't be here. And I'm so very grateful. So thanks very much. Let's get started.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I yield to no man in my respect and my terrific admiration for David Cay Johnston. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, multiple best-selling author, international lecturer on everything from government to tax to Donald Trump. He has met his moment, most certainly. Here he is, David Cay Johnston, everybody. Hi, David.
Hello, Mark.
David, you know, Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House, who sort of, I'd suggest, was a low pro guy up until the moment that he became Speaker. And now you look at Mike Johnson, and we said at the time when it happened, like, he's a holy roller, but I mean, like a real Trumper, election denier. And he supported, I think it was the lead counsel for those, the gay re-education programs. He was very much a part of that. So he is, I think he's a dangerous guy. But the reason I bring him up in this context is twofold. One, he went to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring or to meet with Papa Trump. And the second thing is he led a prayer on the floor of the House of Representatives. And it was just chilling to me. It made me realize that we are just a couple of clicks off the theocracy that we could easily become, David Cay Johnston.
Well, while the New Testament tells people to pray in private and calls out people who pray publicly and make a display of it, including, sports events, hypocrites, there's nothing illegal about praying on the House floor. Some Trumpers have been distributing a photo that shows Nancy Pelosi and others in what they say is praying. They were actually taking a knee in the concept of solidarity with the Minneapolis man George Floyd, who was killed by a police officer, and with perhaps the San Francisco 49ers quarterback, who, despite his enormous talents, has never been employed since he did that.
Yeah, Colin Kaepernick, right.
But if you dig into this guy who was very low profile, nobody was paying attention to him. and the Democrats didn't even run something against him the last time, you find out that he is a weird and troubling character unless you are with him and want to turn us into a white privilege theocracy. He, has this quote unquote adopted son who's black. He and his wife have basically preached the women will do as their husbands tell them what to do business on podcasts.
Let me ask you a question, David. I don't mean to cut you off, but I want when you say quote unquote adopted, why do you say it that way?
Oh, well, they've now acknowledged that this young man who he said was adopted and who's only like 11 years younger than him, that he was not adopted. That was sort of, it's like there's a young man in my life that my children call the ninth child, but I'd never hold him out as being adopted. He's a young man who regards me as his second father.
I thought I was the ninth child, David. I guess I have to, maybe I'll play for the 10th child maybe now. But anyway, I get your point. He tried to represent it in a way as adopted bit
by bit, things are coming out as people are looking at him. Roger Sullenberger, who's this very good investigative reporter, who's now at the Daily Beast, was the first, I think, to get into the fact that he says he doesn't have a checking account that qualifies for disclosure, $5,000. He's made trips that make no sense unless somebody paid for them for him to give talks, but they don't appear on his disclosure statement. So he appears to be someone who has been thumbing his nose, like Clarence Thomas, at ethics rules. And I suspect, therefore, it's just a matter of time before more comes out. When the very first Clarence Thomas misconduct came out, I said on your show, there's going to be more, and there's been a lot more since then, and I don't think we're done, especially if Sheldon Whitehouse, the senator from Rhode Island, is successful in getting subpoenas to uncover the favors done for Clarence Thomas that are patently only being done for him because he's a Supreme Court justice. If he was a traffic court judge, a job for which I think he's qualified, nobody would be taking him on luxury tours in private jets and on yachts.
Yeah, that's ain't it the truth? So as we look at Mike Johnson and we again see him with Trump, who is in the Trump business, right? Trump doesn't really have an ideology underpinning anything. He doesn't have a governmental philosophy.
I am the greatest. Right. I am the only. I am the savior. That's his ideology.
It was a brand building exercise to run for president, and then he ended up president. It was like, So, so to my first anxiety that I kind of led with, which is, how far are we, David, from this Christian theocracy? I understand it's there, it's swimming through a lot of these people, but legislatively, you're a big picture guy. Could this government end up both, run by an autocrat and a theocrat?
Well, let's start off with the fact that Mike Johnson, the new speaker, is 2 heart attacks away from being president of the United States. He's second in line. Clarence Thomas, years ago, in a court decision, said that he didn't see any reason that Utah couldn't become a theocracy. He's wrong about that, which is one of the reasons he doesn't belong in the Supreme Court. Under our Constitution, you can't have a theocracy unless you're behaving illegally or you change the Constitution. But there are a whole lot of people who are spreading this lie that we were a Christian nation founded by Christians. As part of this, we're seeing a pushback on the whole slavery business. Brian Kilmeade of Fox News, I tweeted and threaded about this yesterday, says that America wouldn't be as great a country as it is if we hadn't had slavery and slave owners. And then he goes, now, of course, slavery was wrong. No, you don't even think what he said unless you're a racist. And if you think slavery had any benefits or made America better today, first of all, you're making a great argument for reparations, but more importantly, your thought process tells everyone else, you're a racist, you just don't recognize it. You're not self-aware about it. And Mike Lee, senator from Utah, who defeated in a primary a conservative, rock-rib, solid, thoughtful senator, Bennett Johnston, no relation at all, and now sits there. You know, I teach my law students a little bit about him, where he has attacked the 14th Amendment, one of the 3 civil rights amendments after the Civil War that ensures due process, and he's attacked it. He is now, you know, promoting the idea that it's okay for the FBI to spy on people he doesn't like, but it's outrageous if they spy on anybody he does like. And this is the underlying problem, Mark, is we're getting away from principles. Principles matter. You know, John McCain said and did many things in his life I disagreed with, but in every case that I looked into, he at least was operating from a position of principle. There are politicians on the left who, you know, don't agree with some of the things they want to do, and when they're not operating from principle, I get on them about it. Principles matter. Integrity matters. But unfortunately, Donald Trump has introduced it's okay to just throw away facts, pay no attention. And as we now know, Karl Rove told the writer Ron Suskind about 23 years ago, you journalists will go on analyzing the world and slicing and dicing it. I'm paraphrasing him. And we will just go on creating our own reality. And that's what we're seeing, this creation of a reality that isn't real, but the actual facts are ignored.
This is that's a chilling quote, because there may be truth to it. You know, yeah. I looked at this Mar-a-Lago meeting, and alongside Mike Johnson and his meeting with Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago are all these Christian nationalists that would, you know, there's a Rolling Stone piece, and they say Christian nationalists were out in force at Mar-a-Lago, once again demonstrating their proximity to MAGA power. And again, you know, Christianity is great, and religion can be a great thing for you, but it's now beginning to inform so many aspects of public life and government that it concerns me. So anyway, they go on, and essentially they are high-fiving each other to sort of summarize what was going on about the fact that the religious movement is making such great strides in modern America.
Well, it's making great strides because of gerrymandered districts and the partial gutting, and it looks like now with an appeals court decision, the full gutting of the Voting Rights Act from 1965. And there's an astonishing aspect to this, Mark, I really don't understand. In the 35 years I've known Donald, it's been very clear to me that he is not a Christian. In his book, he wrote with Bill Zanker. I don't know who wrote the pages for him, but he co-authored with Bill Zanker, Think Big. He spends 6 pages denouncing Christians. He calls them fools, idiots, and schmucks. And in the last case, he doesn't mean to be redundant. He means the more vile meaning of the Yiddish word schmuck. He announces in that book that his life philosophy is a single word, revenge. He has said this in speeches that were covered with videotape and audio tape. And at the last National Prayer Breakfast, when he was in office, this was in January of 2020, the main speaker talks about loving your enemy and turning the other cheek. And Donald says, I can't do that. I can't do that. And now we've had stories in first Newsweek, which I was skeptical of because of the decline in the quality of that place under its current owners, but now in several other publications of pastors of evangelical churches saying that members are coming to them and saying, why are you teaching this Sermon on the Mount, turn the other cheek business? We don't want that. We want you to preach Donald Trump. Hit him in the face 15 times over. Take joy in ruining the lives of people. Things Donald writes in that book, that nothing gives him more joy than to ruin the lives of other people. And that tells you, once again, no principles, no integrity among these people who are not Christians. They call themselves Christians, but their actions and their stated beliefs have as much to do with Christianity as for those who are watching on the internet, the scene out the back of my house looks like Hawaii, not Rochester, New York.
Yeah, there's definitely a disconnect. So you've kind of then articulated that Trump connects with this crew like Mike Johnson, who connects with his crew, which is the Christian nationalists, and they have risen in power. They're now at the Supreme Court level, at the legislative level, as you've explained, with dominance, or at least significant enough in number because of gerrymandering and the like. And if they get their MAGA savior, who right now, stands a even money chance of getting back into the Oval Office, does the nature of America change from that standpoint? I guess what I'm asking about.
Oh, I think very much so. And I think people need to really be paying attention here, and they need to register and they need to get out to vote. I tweeted and threaded yesterday that Mike Davis, who runs something called the 2025 or the Article 3 Project, he declared that if Mehdi Hasan, the MSNBC host, if Trump gets back in the White House and Davis is made Attorney General, as Trump has suggested, that he intends to arrest Mehdi Hasan, charge him, put him in what he called the Gulag, right out of Soviet tyranny, and deport him. Never mind that he doesn't have any charges to bring. He's just going to prosecute people. And Trump is talking about, and the people around him, like his Minister of Hate, Stephen Miller, who, when he graduated from Santa Monica High School, I guess 25, 30 years ago now, they had to stop his speech because the one he said he was going to deliver was replaced by one that was pure racist vitriol and hatred. And they took him away from the speaking platform. The danger here is quite palpable. Now, I do want to point out that I think we have good reason not to trust the polls because response rates are so low, which we talked about last week. But the fact that even in these polls, in the states that matter, the swing states that are up for the election, that clearly large numbers of people intend to vote for Donald Trump, should be deeply disturbing to us because Donald Trump has made no bones about it. If he gets back in the White House, it is the end of American democracy. He will do what he tried and failed to do in 2020, which is just stay in the White House. We now have credible testimony from people who were there that he intended to stay, which backs up, of course, his actual conduct. And he tried to overthrow the government of the United States. The judge in Colorado, the state judge, earlier this week found that absolutely he is an insurrectionist, but then she adopted this bizarre argument by the Trump lawyers that the president of the United States is not an officer under our Constitution. Gee, let me see. How does that oath for the president go? Faithfully execute the office of the president. There's grammatical fine tinkering, but both Judge Ludig, who is a big hero to the principled right and a serious scholar of our Constitution, and Lawrence Tribe, the most distinguished constitutional scholar in academia, who is very liberal, they both agree that this decision by the judge that Trump is not an officer of the United States is ridiculous. It's indefensible. It's not backed up by the law. I think what it is the judge said, well, the facts are here, but I don't have any backbone. I'm afraid. I don't want to.
That's exactly what I was about to say to you. It seems to me that it's all a workaround by these judges and others who can stand to actually do something, and they're frightened. They are literally frightened.
Well, if Trump has threatened the family of Jack Smith, the prosecutor. He has gone after the clerk for Judge Engoron in New York. Listen, if Donald wants to, as he has, go into a diatribe denouncing me, various things, he has his pet name for me, Weird Dude. He can do so. I don't have any problem with that. And I recognize that, some crazy I could open my door and some crazy person could shoot me. But I'm a public figure. I chose to get into this fray. The secretary to a judge, the family of a prosecutor, they shouldn't have to have police detectives pick them up at home to take them to school or work, and a series of protocols to protect them. And I don't understand the hesitancy of courts, because any other criminal defendant out on bail who did and said what Trump has, they'd absolutely be locked up now. And there have been, I don't know how many public defenders, prosecutors, and professors and retired judges who've said that in the public sphere. And yet, oh, well, he has this free speech because he's running for president. No, he's a criminal defendant. He should be treated like everybody else. Nobody is special in the criminal defense system. And given how many innocent people we have put away, the overwhelming proof that in the last 30 years we have executed innocent people for crimes they didn't commit, the leniency being shown to Donald Trump is appalling.
And I kind of feel as though, David, see point A on that, which is that people are frightened of the repercussions, even if it's not personal repercussions, personal danger they may be in, although, as you just suggested, don't discount that at all. But the reality is that they see it as a problem for the system to jail a former president.
Yeah, although I tell you, Mark, I have said many times, including on your show, that before we get through this, there will be more blood. It's going to be lone wolves and nutcases, which are the people we've had so far. We're not going to see a mass uprising as with the failed coup attempt on January 6th, 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. When Trump has shown up at various court proceedings, there have been tiny crowds supporting him. His rallies are drawing smaller and smaller audiences. And, at DC Report, starting about 3 or 4 years ago, we sent journalism students or journalists, or in one case, one of my sons who's done legwork for me, to Trump rallies. And we taught them how to shoot pictures in the back of the room. Basically, you shoot a selfie with people you made nice with, and the back of the room's in the background. And you could see there was nobody there. Trump focused the cameras where he wanted and wouldn't allow the TV and other cameras to shoot anywhere there. His support on any level of overthrowing the government by force is dwindling. But that doesn't mean he can't get into the Electoral College. It doesn't mean we can't have, unlike 2020 and 2016 and 2012 and on back, and a corrupt election process, at least in some of the states.
Sure, he's found the right country for to back yourself into the chief executive office. I've only got like 3 minutes with you left.
Yeah.
I want to do a hard pivot to something that I was thinking about you last night, because I just thought, what would David's reaction be? Elon Musk on the X platform has retweeted a bunch of anti-Semitic stuff. It's become a real cauldron of hate. And there's a lot on there. And when he himself is, retweeting, giving greater oxygen to this hate, is particularly disturbing. This is, comment if you want to, that's not really what I want to ask you about. What I want to ask you about is, Musk is being talked about for this reason, as there need to be repercussions, there need to be, government needs to drop contracts with this guy, et cetera. I've always maintained on this show, and I think this is a sign of sort of the oligarchical tendencies of the United States, that we have such dependence on Elon Musk. You cannot break these contracts. You need them for Starlink and SpaceX. And sure enough, the government contracts are, they just re-upped another one with SpaceX. I guess what I'm getting at after that lengthy ramp up, David, thank you, is isn't Elon Musk the sort of guy, along with the Bezoses and the other super wealthy guys who the government depends on for different services, aren't they wagging the dog forever? There is no bringing them to heel.
I don't think they're doing it forever. What we're seeing are the sour fruits of privatization. There are times and places where privatization works better, especially when you use nonprofit organizations whose focus is on service rather than maximizing profits. At the moment, the Ukrainian military depends on Starlink. They've had, sometimes not had access to it because of Musk. Musk can run his business however he wants. He has a general right to do that. But corporations that want the public to buy their products, their goods and services, should be shunning him. Now, you'll notice all the companies that have announced we're not going to be there anymore, they didn't say it's over. They just suspended for the moment what they're doing. We saw a whole bunch of companies after January 6th, when 147 Republicans voted to not certify the election, say we aren't going to give to them. And now they're back to giving to them, led, by the way, by AT&T of all companies. I mean, a horribly anti-American company named American Telephone and Telegraph before they went to initials. Musk represents, though, this real problem of concentrated power, oligopolies, and monopolies. And one of the reasons the economy is the way it is right now, as Robert Reich pointed out yesterday, prices have gone up, I think it was 20%, in the same period that corporate profits have gone up 75%. And Musk is someone who, like Donald Trump, believes the rules don't apply to him. He's not accountable to anybody. At least at this point, we know without any doubt that he's an anti-Semite. In fact, I would say a vicious anti-Semite who's adopted the position that Hitler was right. And whatever you're talking about Hitler, whether it was attacking the Russians or it was a concentration and death camps, Hitler wasn't right. So he needs to be shunned. And the answer to this, I believe, is first and foremost consumers and individuals. Now, I'm going to continue to use his website, but I will never buy a product advertised there. Nobody in my family, we've discussed this, is going to buy any product advertised on Twitter. So I'm just simply draining his resources, I suppose, in a tiny, itsy bitsy, teensy weensy, atomic level way. And the data he's getting on me isn't of much interest to advertisers because they're not interested in people my age. They want youngins. But I got my children behind me on this and my grandchildren.
Yeah, in your case, it's a pretty substantial crew. Your family.
It's a fairly big crew. Yes. And so he just, yeah. Mark, it's just we need also to have our government stop being his sugar daddy. He is a huge welfare king. Collecting huge amounts of public money, and we can find other vendors.
Well, I mean, I'd love to see it. It's just, and the arrogance, by the way, I mean, it's one thing to take advantage of the system, as you suggested, the privatization of everything and the mergers give people like Elon Musk supreme dominance. But the arrogance, a lot of these guys keep their mouth shut, I guess might be a way to put it. But Elon Musk, the arrogance, the pomposity with which he makes all of these statements, and he's a hate monger. So,
yes, he is absolutely a hate monger. So, listen, enjoy your bird-free Thursday.
I love talking to you, David. You're so kind.
We're going to enjoy our heritage turkey, which is ridiculously expensive because they have to take this flightless bird and send it to you on a FedEx jet. But it's so much better than the industrial birds that most of us eat, and worth, if you can possibly afford it, it really is worth it to get a heritage turkey, assuming you're not just a cranberry sauce and potatoes guy like you, Mark.
Listen, there's a lot of good feeling and great food at my place, David. Someday you'll see it. I'm so grateful as we give thanks for our continued connection. Thank you so much, David Cay Johnston. Happy holidays to you. All right, so long. David Cay Johnston, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kind of elbowed my veganism on the way out there, didn't he? Man, gosh. All you meat eaters just can't resist. I don't take shots. But I always, occasionally, I used to get a lot more of this. How come, Mark, let me ask you, you're a vegan, aren't you? Yeah. How come you vegans are always preaching? I don't, you're always bringing it up. I don't bring it up at all. I always just get it on the way out. But I think we take a lot more incoming fire. No, I don't, Tony?
No, not with you, but I always say, in talk radio as long as I've been, there's two things you can always count on. that they'll tell you in a phone call is a vegan will always tell you the vegan, and an old person will always tell you their age.
Thanks, Tony.
Always could count on that.
I do get it. I have seen that this thing where you're like to be, and I think also, to be fair, when you think you've found something really important and a real, you have information that you feel others should have, and you've made a serious change in your life as a result of it, you really want to share it. And some people can't wait to share it, to the point that they literally can't wait. They have to go, hey man, I just became vegan. Let me tell you why. But generally, as you know, I think most of the world is not, and certainly on this forum, we don't hit it too hard. We give you little bits and pieces here and there, and this is the time of year where it comes up because everybody's about what are you eating, what are you eating. So, Kim, you are the queen of this show.
Wow, that's new.
What is the, well, maybe the title's new, but I think the reality's always been
how
there.
are you?
Now, what are we doing? We do your news, and then what happens?
Looking for my crown. I don't have it. Okay, so we do the news, and then we come back, and we have a little bit of law and disorder.
That's
right?
it. Law and disorder still to come.
And
Jefferson
maybe
Graham.
Jefferson Graham comes up. We might be able to squeeze in. I don't know. But I think you had another segment in there as well. I think maybe it was a That's Rich or a Stories from the Sky.
Yeah, we have a
didn't get to
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah.
We'll
We've
see
got
what
a
happens.
few things, but we'll definitely get to some law and disorder. All right, smash
then
the
we'll
like
have
button if you would.
With your iron
Yeah,
rod.
smash the like button like a boss. What is it, Kim?
And then at 12:30 today, we have David Katz coming in because Thursday we're dark for Thanksgiving. So
Right.
he decided to move to today. So we have David Katz today as well.
All right.
Yeah.
All of that still to come. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee. A tentative deal between Israel and Hamas to release hostages. It's raising hopes of a ceasefire in this conflict. According to multiple reports, the deal would include a pause in fighting, while about 50 Israeli and international hostages would be freed over a several-day period in exchange for Palestinian women and children currently detained in Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is convening a special cabinet meeting to consider the terms, so not a done deal right now, but it's something in the works. At the airports, the Thanksgiving holiday rush underway across the country. 30 million travelers expected to pass through security checkpoints by the end of the week. Georgia Federal Security Director Robert Spindon says the goal is to keep wait times to a half hour or less. He's advising travelers arrive at the airport at least 2 hours ahead of the flight. U.S. military aircraft killed hostile forces by firing on a vehicle after an attack on American and coalition forces in Iraq. A senior official says it's not clear how many hostiles were killed or whether any Americans were injured in the attack on al-Assad Air Base. There's been at least 64 attacks on U.S. and coalition forces in Iraq since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. Turns out the I-10 freeway underpass near downtown Los Angeles, where that massive fire broke out more than a week ago, failed an inspection months earlier.
Oh, my God.
I know. Combustible liquids and piles of pallets were stored under the freeway in that area leased out by Caltrans. The fire is being investigated as arson, but yes, now we know it didn't pass inspection. So they knew something was amiss there before the bad stuff even happened.
Oh.
Here in the Bay Area, the town of Pittsburgh is adding 3 more cameras to fight crime. The city approved a plan last night to expand the system. A police lieutenant says this is necessary to keep the pace with the population growth. The first cameras went in 2014 to automatically read license plates, and since then, they've helped officers solve cases from car break-ins to a murder, allowing them to respond faster. This new addition makes 178 license plate reading cameras in Pittsburgh. Former police chief of Oakland, hitting the court, LeBron Armstrong is now a basketball coach at Bishop O'Dowd High School.
Wow.
The senior players say he's been giving great advice as they gear up for their Thanksgiving showcase this weekend. Armstrong is still fighting to get his job as the chief of police of Oakland back. He says he did nothing wrong. He was fired in February after the mayor said he didn't discipline officers who committed misconduct. And lastly, there's a new Karate Kid film starring Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan in the works. Ralph Macchio is reprising his role as Daniel LaRusso, who he played in the original film trilogy. Chan will return as Mr. Han, a kung fu master that coached Jaden Smith's Dre Parker in the 2010 reboot. The plot details are being kept under wraps, but Karate Kid fans will be happy to know.
Well, I mean, how
that
could
is the
he's
case.
older now? Is he? I don't know what kind of plot there would be. You still got the coach. You still have there has to be some kind of competition, you know? I don't know. Normally you'd see him as the coach. That's what they did Rocky, right? Rocky got too old, and then Rocky becomes the manager of, Apollo Creed's son. That's the tried and true way to do it.
Wasn't there the TV remake, right, where it was their children that were then taking the karate lessons or what have you?
Oh, well, there was, is it Cobra Kai? What was the
that's right.
What is that, Tony? You must know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Cobra
it's still
Kai.
on, isn't it? Still
Cobra
on?
Kai, yeah.
Yeah, it's Cobra Kai.
Right. That's the spinoff from Karate Kid, right, Tony?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay,
And
anyway.
in that case, it was the kids, right? It was I mean, who knows? It could be the younger generation, or maybe it's just a rematch.
Cobra Kai it's the bad guy from I can't remember his name now.
It's the bad guy, the blonde dude.
and he starts his own studio,
Karate
with just the
studio.
kids in it. So it's not like they're actual kids; it's just kids. They're the kids, a new generation essentially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where it's
The Cobra Kai guy was taking anger management classes. Wow. Well, there's a plot twist.
Yeah, that's
Thank
a good
you,
plot.
Square.
There you go. So, but if you love Karate Kid, you'll be happy to know this is on the way in, and it's very exciting for people that love that movie. I mean, the original was pretty good. Wax on, wax off, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of like,
Well, maybe they'll bring wax on, wax off back, Kim. I mean, you seem to like it. I'm sure.
One can only hope.
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, my goodness.
All right.
No.
All right. I think it works.
No. I'm just in the mood for this. Just to bring me to Tenuta Winery in Livermore so I can look out at the gorgeous hills and grapevines and have some wine. This is the time when the grapevines are turning colors, and it is so, so pretty.
The Livermore Valley. Ooh,
It's
yeah.
gorgeous.
And Jefferson Graham ought to go out to that Livermore Valley, catch a couple of
Take
his
some pictures.
shots.
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the scene?
It's the Livermore Valley, Larry. Never been more beautiful.
We love the Tenuta Winery in Livermore. It is indeed the home of the Mark Thompson Why Are You Yelling Red Blend and the Hey, Which One of You is Mark Thompson Pinot Grigio.
Oh,
Both
that's a great
excellent
Pinot.
in their
Which
own
one do you
right.
use, Mark Thompson?
Right.
It's
okay.
good stuff. It's good stuff. If you're looking for holiday gifts, this is the place to buy. You can call them and get 10% off, by the way, just for being a Mark Thompson Show listener. 10% off of your entire purchase. Rich is at 925-699-4576. All you have to do is call them and say,
Smashed it with your iron rod.
just like that, you get your 10% off and away you go. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
%100% effective. How about that?
There is no defense for my conduct.
Joe Fish, Sal the Shoemaker, Joe Box, and Little Anthony.
Mo Black's brother, Fat Andy.
it with your iron rod.
Seriously, what the?
Yeah. What up, everybody? Well, there you go. Let me put my credibility glasses on quickly. Debbie, for a 10 spot, first of all, I want to thank you for the super chat.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Debbie. And Mark, I'd be happy to be open-minded about being a vegan with a dinner invitation next year at your dinner table. Well, maybe we will do a big dinner. I'd love to do some kind of big thing with our listeners/viewers next year. So that's something that we will try to get on the agenda. And Debbie is our first RSVP. I'm very excited. Thank you, Debbie. And thank you very much for supporting the show. Of course, we're a crowd-funded show. So if you want to support the show, be part of our community of supporters, you can do it at themarkthompsonshow.com. There are live links, hot links as they call them, to Patreon and PayPal. And that's how you do it. And then you become one of the many who support this show. So, all right, without any further delay, let's bring in a guy
The Mark Thompson Show.
who has been with us since the beginning. He migrated over from KGO Radio, came with us to the YouTube platform, and we love all of his contributions on technology, the longtime tech writer for USA Today, now host of PhotoWalks TV, Jefferson Graham.
Hello, hello, hello. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, Jeff, you've got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Always the new videos I see.
Always.
What do you make? Let me just quickly get you back into the world of technology because there's something of a shakeup in AI at ChatGPT. How does this ChatGPT shakeup where essentially the entire staff has threatened to leave, they may leave, go to Microsoft, et cetera. How does this affect us?
Well, first of all, wouldn't it have been nice if when you and Kim and everybody else left KGO that 700 people would sign up and say, I won't listen? Wouldn't that have been nice?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it would have been nice. I mean, it doesn't happen. So basically, this guy got fired, Sam Altman got fired on Friday at 12, and all hell broke loose over the weekend. And basically, the entire staff of the company said, we're not going to stay here because of what you did unless you change your mind. That's a pretty amazing thing. I've never heard of anything like that happening. Most people are more concerned with paying their mortgage than making a stand. So pretty cool thing. So basically, how does this affect everybody? It was a fight versus good and evil. It was a fight versus going really fast or slowing down. And the best way that I'm reading it is that the board felt that he was going too fast and they were concerned about what AI meant for the future. And now 3 days later, Microsoft sweeps it, hires him and the Sam Altman and his president. And it looks like most of the people from OpenAI, ChatGPT, will be going over to Microsoft. Microsoft doesn't want to slow down. They want to go forward. And so full speed ahead.
So this is interesting what Russ was saying, that Microsoft wins and gets the company for a fraction of what it might have been to acquire the company. Is there some truth to that?
Nothing. I mean, I don't know what they're paying the top two guys, but I doubt it was multiple millions of dollars. They would have had to pay billions to get OpenAI, and now they're getting it for salaries. It sounds like one of the greatest deals in the history of tech.
It seems interesting to me, Jeff, just because you've signed contracts, I've signed contracts. Generally, they stipulate that you can't quit and go work across the street. You know what I mean? Even in my little media career, I can't go, if I'm working for NBC, go across the street and work for ABC for a better deal. How did that happen here? Because he was jettisoned? Isn't there a cooling off period? Or how can he go work at Microsoft right away?
I don't know. I haven't read his contract, but Microsoft certainly felt strong enough about it that they were able to hire him and his deputy without a problem. So as far as the staffers, the engineers, I don't know that they write that. I don't even know that they have contracts. We don't know, do we?
No, we don't. I guess it fairly rudimentary, though, I would think, in the kind of arrangement you would make with a CEO of a major media organization or a major technology organization. I would think it fairly boilerplate that there's a non-compete. So I'm a little surprised by this.
You would think, I would think too, but Microsoft made the announcement that they hired both of them. So clearly they felt that they had the right to do it. And you haven't heard OpenAI saying, well, we're going to sue. No,
Right.
You can't go there. You didn't hear anything like that.
So now let me go back to what Russ's point was, and then I'll get to Kim here in a second. But I wanted to ask how that changes the landscape just from a business standpoint. Does Microsoft immediately kind of leapfrog to the top of the heap when it comes to artificial intelligence?
Yeah. At first blush, it looks like ChatGPT will go away, maybe, and Microsoft will just Microsoft will just take it over, or they'll start their own with everybody who's there working on it. And I don't think it's too late in the game for that to happen. But Microsoft is clearly in the driver's seat. And these two guys would have gone to Amazon or Apple or Google or whatever and done their thing over there, and they would have been, welcomed. So, but Microsoft is clearly in the lead.
Again, I might be naive on this, but you're telling me that you can be the number one AI company and brand. You lose your CEO. Let's assume you lose everybody else. You lose your staff. So now you're a shell of what you were. You're just the brand. You can't repopulate that and get another CEO to ride herd over the biggest brand in AI? You're telling me you just pack it up and Microsoft takes it? I can't believe that.
If 700 people leave, we saw what happened to Twitter without people working there.
No, those people were fired and they didn't want to rehire them. The situation with Microsoft, I just want to write this out for a second. Microsoft said to the AI people, for those who don't know, they said, hey, everybody from OpenChat GPT, you're welcome over here. So they've got now 700 new positions, to use the number that Jeff's using, and they've got, the CEO. Okay, cool. But they at OpenChat GPT, unlike Twitter, they want to rehire. They want to fill that company again. There's certainly others beside that 700 who can handle this technology, Jeff, aren't there?
I assume so, but the thing is that Sam Altman, in his new job at Microsoft, will be overseeing ChatGPT and OpenAI if he doesn't go back there.
So maybe I don't understand this deal. Doesn't OpenAI still own ChatGPT, or you're saying Altman owns it?
I'm saying Microsoft. Well, this nonprofit. It's a weird situation. There's a nonprofit and there's a for-profit, and Microsoft is an investor in the profit. And basically, except for these three board members who are not budging, they could have budged by the time we started talking. I don't know, but I think Microsoft's in the driver's seat. They've got the money, and they will control what's going on.
Yeah, Sam was fired, not resigned, says Scott.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, all right.
Black Friday?
It's fascinating to me, the whole thing. Go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get clarity on that.
Just going to mention, and I don't know if you guys had said this, that Microsoft owns 49% of OpenAI since 2015. Since 2019, Microsoft has invested up to $13 billion in OpenAI. So again, they own a 49% stake in the company, and maybe that's why they have to be really nice to Microsoft if they want to hire people that they just fired, or if they want to fudge the contracts. I mean, that's a pretty big investment. So
that's a great piece of information. Yeah, thank you for that. That may be, it's sort of it's a creeping coup.
It'll be a wonderful TV movie when they make it, right? I can't wait.
These tech stories are fascinating, and they do make good TV movies. The one about Tetris was really good. There was another one that WeWork was terrific. They did several on that, and there was one.
Theranos.
Yeah, thank
Theranos.
you. Theranos, yeah.
Uber, they did Uber also.
Oh, I didn't see that. They did the Uber story, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but I know they did.
I saw most of the other ones, yeah.
And Sam Bankman-Fried will definitely have a movie, right?
Sam Bankman-Fried, the Fire Festival guys who were essentially launched that festival on the platforms, the social media platforms that propelled it to the stratosphere. And then, of course, there was no there. That was the problem. They had similar things this past weekend with Vegas and the Formula One race, where it was sort of really everything was incredibly inflated. You couldn't get a hotel room there for less than $2,000 or something, $2,000 a night. And they had walled off big parts of the strip. They'd made it quite exclusive. And then they kind of turned people off. You know, people thought, oh, this is going to just be awful. And they almost oversold it or overbuilt it or created this sense that, it's just going to be kind of miserable. And then they're giving away these hotel rooms because they're, you know, again, the demand wasn't there to meet the supply.
Now, I happened to check the hotel room prices for New Year's Eve. Now, I saw $900 a night at the Paris, which I thought was rather excessive, but it sounds like a bargain compared to Formula One.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm trying to remember what I paid. I used to go to Vegas a lot on New Year's Eve. It was when I used to host shows for Fox, I'd host the New Year's Eve shows. Oftentimes they were in Las Vegas. You can imagine. One year we imploded a building. The building was going to be imploded anyway, but it was one of those hotels. I think it was the Hacienda or something. And at midnight, they detonated. Midnight on the East Coast, so 9 o'clock in the West. But anyway, that's I don't remember what we paid, but I just remember that, they jack up the prices. Super Bowl weekend, New Year's Eve, and, you know.
But Mark,
yeah.
$100 a night or less from December 17th to New Year's, because I have checked.
If
anybody's interested.
That's the sweet spot. Yeah.
Caesar's Palace, Paris, all the big ones, $100 or less a night.
Wow. That's extraordinary. So what's on Photo Walks TV these days? What's your latest?
I got assigned to write an article for a publication about how to do a good selfie. And so in my research, I started watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos, and I didn't feel that anybody had really gotten to the crux of the multiple things that you need to know beyond holding out your arm. So I did something on the art of the selfie with 9 tips for how to do good selfie, and that's going to debut tomorrow night.
The 9 Commandments. I like it.
Yes. And I have a major announcement.
Have you? Is it worthy of our?
Major announcement.
I guess it is.
Thompson Show. A major announcement.
Wow, this is extraordinary. Somebody else comes in with a major announcement. Go ahead, Jeff. What is it?
This is not Jim Avila type major announcement, but it's good for me. I'm going to be in San Francisco on Monday next week. And I know we have a lot of San Francisco viewers. I'm going to be running around town with my camera, taking pictures to find out if all the best tourist spots from Fisherman's Wharf to the marina to the ferry building, etc., are anywhere like they've been portrayed in the national media as drug addicts lying on the ground and blah, blah, blah. You know the story. I would like to invite a viewer, a listener of the Mark Thompson Show to come along with me.
No.
And all they have to do is hit the like button, with an iron rod, maybe a little super sticker for Mark. Subscribe to my newsletter.
I'm liking it more.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Wow. Okay.
Contact me. Let me know that you'd like to come and why, and hopefully we'll go on a cable car together or something fun like that.
Wow. Jeff is looking for a date in San Francisco. Everybody. It's a platonic thing, but he still wants to hang out with somebody. This is a chance to hang out with the great Jefferson Graham. Wow. That is a major announcement.
This has been a major announcement of the Mark Thompson Show.
Well done, sir. Well, with that, I send you on your way. Jefferson Graham is at jeffersongraham.substack.com. He's got great information there, and it's usually embedded with some cool stuff that you can click through to. And, of course, you can find Photo Walks TV on YouTube. Jeff, we love you. You're one of the things that we give thanks for, and have a great holiday, my friend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Jefferson Graham, everybody. Woohoo!
The Mark Thompson Show.
Jefferson Graham grabbing the major announcement. That's pretty big time. Tony, do I have time for a chunk of Trump?
Sure.
I've decided I want to do a chunk of Trump instead of Law and Disorder. And the reason I like to always tell the audience everything. Maybe I transparently overshare, but here it is. I thought Law and Disorder was too dark.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's too dark. It involves just too much sadness. So I decided against it, and I'm going with this, which is your chunk of Trump.
Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Well, I love to get good news about Donald Trump's health, and so you can imagine how excited I am to learn that Donald Trump's physician says that Trump is in, quote, excellent health because of his weight loss. Yep. He has cognitive exams that were exceptional. He has a body that is God-given.
Wow.
And the physician's statement is remarkable. I'm going to read a portion of it to you. It existed in a publicly released letter from the Morristown Medical Group. I have been President Donald J. Trump's personal physician since 2021. During this time, I've conducted several comprehensive exams, the most recent being September 13th, 2023. I have supervised special consultations along the way with ancillary testing for screening. And ancillary is a ding word. And preventative health maintenance. I am pleased to report, and here is the essence of it, that President Trump's overall health is excellent. His physical exams were well within the normal range, and his cognitive exams were exceptional. In addition, his most recent extensive laboratory analysis remains well within normal limits and was even more favorable than prior testing in some of the most significant parameters. Parameters is a ding word.
I'll be cashing my check at Bank of America later today.
Cardiovascular studies were all normal. Cancer screening tests, all negative. President Trump has reduced his weight through an improved diet and continued daily physical activity. While maintaining a rigorous schedule, it is my opinion that President Trump is currently in excellent health, and with his continued interest in preventative health monitoring and maintenance, he will continue to enjoy a healthy, active lifestyle for years to come, everyone. Yes, we'll have him for years to come. Bruce Ehrenwald is the doctor of record in that Trump health check. So bravo. Meanwhile,
what happens if a doctor says, clean bill of health, you're amazing, everything about you is great, and then like 5 days later you drop dead, and the coroner says, yeah, well, his arteries were all full of plaque and fat, and it wasn't good.
Well, it's not good for business for that doctor, but I'm guessing it probably wouldn't matter much. It'll be lost in the other smoke of that event. So we are going to play a piece of video for you. This is from Donald Trump on the stump. And you can say, how come so much Trump? Well, this is a chunk of Trump, first of all. That's how come. And also, he's the leading candidate for the GOP top of ticket spot to become president. In fact, he's got a better than even money chance of being the next president. So I think it's fair to focus on him. And the last point I might make is that he just met with the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. We gave you a few minutes on that to start the show. So again, he is a politically significant character. This isn't just some little hobby that we have to kind of wah Donald Trump. I think we follow him quite closely, but you certainly have your wah moments. So he's on the stump, and out of nowhere, he brings up the Russian P tape and seems to, I mean, again, it wasn't part of the agenda or wasn't response to a question. Tony, please.
What it is. This is the greatest witch hunt. It started with Russia. Remember that? He was with 4 hookers. You think that was good that night to go up and tell my wife, it's not true, darling. I love you very much. It's not true. Actually, that one she didn't believe because she said he's a germaphobe. He's not into that, you know? He's not into golden showers, as they say they call them. He's not. I don't like that idea. No, I didn't. I thought that would be a big problem. I was going to have a rough night, but that one she was very good on. She said, no, you're okay on that one.
Yeah.
You're okay on that one. So wait.
I'm astounded by that.
Let me just say, she believes the golden shower story is false because he's a germaphobe, but sleeping with porn stars is okay? Like, that's not germy at all? I don't understand.
There is a cognitive dissonance there, and I would say that and it wasn't just the golden showers. She wouldn't believe that he was with 6 hookers because of that. So yeah. But apparently 1 at a time is okay.
That's okay? Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's almost as though that story was just made up. I'm talking about the one where he talks to Melania. He this week demanded that Donald Trump did that his party stop hosting debates for his Republican presidential rivals, or that the debates be revamped. He wants no more debates. He's demanding that the RNC stop hosting these. And this, as actual voting in primaries and caucuses gets closer, and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley's been rising steadily in the polls. He and his campaign have become increasingly vocal about ending the debates entirely. They think clearly that she's coming across well in these debates. Quote, RNC must save money on lowest ever ratings debates. Use it against the Democrats to stop the steal. If not, revamp the RNC now. And Trump is
Why are you yelling?
Trump is, he wrote that on his Truth Social. You saw Truth Social is losing a fortune. It's way, way down. I had the story in days ago. I don't know if it's survived the many days, but maybe you can find it. It's
Google it.
But his Truth Social platform is way underwater, and it's unclear as to its future. But we told you, but I'll just reiterate at the beginning of the show, I'll reiterate here in Chunk of Trump, that House Speaker Mike Johnson meets with Trump there in Mar-a-Lago. And he was, of course, a huge Trump supporter, led the Stop the Steal effort in Congress. And he's done something that was not done by his predecessor, Kevin McCarthy, and that is he's endorsing Donald Trump. So McCarthy didn't want to back a specific candidate before the GOP primaries, right? I mean, because you're representing the party. But clearly, Johnson's so in the tank, it doesn't really matter. And Trump was boosting Johnson for his speakership bid, you'll remember. He said, my strong suggestion is to go with the leading candidate, Mike Johnson, and get it done fast. It was in capital letters. And so Johnson, again, very close to Trump, endorsed him and then went to Mar-a-Lago to meet with him. And that is your chunk of Trump. Oh, there it is. And what does the Truth Social say? Yeah, lost 23 million this year. Yeah, it may not survive. Yeah, thank you. I saw that the other day. I wanted to mention it, and we just got so busy, didn't get a chance to. But Truth Social, it'll be a sad day when Donald Trump's Truth Social goes away. That is your chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time.
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
For another chunk of Trump.
Oh, yeah. So still to come, David Katz, the great former prosecutor for the feds, is now working the defense side of the table. He will join us. And I'm wondering, Kim, if you could do a news capsule before David.
I can. I'm also just sending him a reminder so that he makes sure to come on because it's not his normal day. So
that's a good point, Kim.
Kim, how are you?
It makes me realize that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Done. And yes, and now I'm ready to do the news.
All right. So smash the like button like a boss, if you would. We're heading into the holidays. Tomorrow, Kim is helming this entire thing on her own.
Uh-oh.
She's got Rothman coming in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Who else do you have coming in? You got, I thought you had another guest tomorrow.
Nope, that's it.
All right. No, right now that's it, but who knows?
Right now, who knows? Who else? Who knows who else I can drum up?
You'll get Kim's news, and then the great David Katz, Mark Thompson Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens. This is the Mark Thompson Show. Keep it to yourself.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Bay Area Congresswoman Anna Eshoo is not seeking re-election in 2024. Eshoo represents the Silicon Valley region, served in Congress for 32 years. She was the first woman and Democrat to represent her district, and she is not running for re-election. Some other news around California. The LAPD officers were apparently, two of them, struck by a suspected drunk driver. Two Los Angeles Police Department officers hit by a vehicle driven by a woman suspected of being intoxicated. Happened at about 2 o'clock this morning. The officers were driving on the 57 freeway in Fullerton after a police pursuit involved a suspect who may have thrown an object out of his vehicle. And while the officers drove at a slow speed searching for the object, a woman in her 20s reportedly struck the police cruiser with her vehicle, causing significant injuries to herself and to the officer. She has been arrested on suspicion of DUI. More Los Angeles Police Department officers are coming forward to claim they were sexually assaulted by other officers as part of a hazing ritual. They say it happened when they joined the LAPD's amateur football team called the Centurions. Attorneys for the group of at least 3 officers have filed claims against the department, accusing superiors of knowing about this long-standing tradition of hazing but doing nothing about it. Los Angeles City Attorney's Office defending the LAPD against the claims. They have yet to comment on the pending litigation there. The U.S. Coast Guard intercepted a boat near Malibu, resulting in the detention of nearly 24 people attempting to enter the country illegally. The vessel was commandeered Monday. According to the Coast Guard officials, 23 undocumented non-citizens were aboard. No injuries were reported there. A Southern California mayor is being accused of sending a gang member to a resident's house to intimidate them. According to Gabby Leos, El Monte Mayor Jessica Ancona has been relentless since the two began feuding during last year's election over flyers that Leos posted for a traffic safety meeting. Ancona said the flyers were campaign materials for her opponent. El Monte's police chief confirmed the identity of the man sent to Leos' house as a known gang member who was just released from federal prison. Leos says Ancona has forwarded private email exchanges to her employer, implying she was arguing with the mayor on company time. Is that illegal? Leo said she was investigated and almost lost her job. Now she's suing the city and the mayor, claiming a citizen should be able to criticize public officials without fear of retaliation. Mayor Ancona not commenting on the suit or any of these accusations, but what a mess there in El Monte. Wow. Yikes. Vice presidential debate is coming for one day next year. Virginia State University will be the center of the political world. VSU officials announcing yesterday the school will host one of the presidential debates in 2024. It will be the first historically black college or university to host a general election presidential debate. It will take place October 1st of 2024. Dr. Larry Sabato is president of the UVA Center for Politics. He says this is a great get for VSU. He tells the local NBC affiliate the school wouldn't be able to buy the amount of international publicity that they will be getting from this event. So again, that's a presidential debate, not a vice presidential debate. That'll be interesting. I want to mention this Thanksgiving travel story because by road, rail, or runway, there are millions of Americans that are traveling for the Thanksgiving holiday. The TSA says this is going to be one of the busiest travel periods of the year. But one traveler flying out of Oakland International says it's easy to lose your cool if things go awry, but they're hoping for the best. The peak travel window is today and tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday. According to AAA, nearly 5 million people are expected to pass through airports for the holiday week. That's more than 6% of a jump from last year, the most since 2005. Experts credit the increase to the drop in airfares and fewer COVID concerns, although I saw a story this morning that COVID concerns are back. The roads will be packed as well. 50 million Americans driving 50 miles or more to their Thanksgiving destination.
Oh, my gosh.
Amtrak expects close to 1 million to ride the rails this week as well. So,
But that
anywhere you
doesn't
look.
mean that it's a good thing.
No, it's not. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's a thing.
Lastly, belly fat could be linked to early stages of Alzheimer's disease.
There's never been anything like this.
A new study found, don't worry about it, Trumpy, your health is fine. A new study found those in their 40s and 50s with more hidden belly fat had a higher amount of abdominal protein in the part of the brain where dementia occurs.
We could try ignoring it, sir.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be the plan for most people.
The study's senior author says men have a higher relationship between belly fat and the brain, interestingly. So there you go.
Men have a higher relationship between a lot of parts of the body and the brain, sadly. Yeah. Didn't know. I'll add belly fat to the list.
Yeah, just keep that in mind. This report is sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee. And Coachella Valley Coffee offers the Mark Thompson Show listener a special 10% off. All you have to do when you go to CoachellaValleyCoffee.com is enter Mark T all together at checkout and get your 10% off. And I have to toss my recommendation again in for the amazing ginger and mint tea. Man, is that good. Wow.
Oh, yeah. And
the holiday blend.
I got it such great... In fact, let me find an email. Well, I'll find an email after you're done. But I've got such great emails about Coachella Valley Coffee, and it really makes me happy to recommend something to you that's gotten such a terrific reaction. But and then yesterday, of course, we met the lead roast master, the roast master general, as I call him.
That's Cliff. Yeah, he was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. We started off the show with one of our viewers, listeners, saying that they just got their Coachella Valley coffee in the mail and they were starting off the morning with it and it was delicious. So.
Oh, that's always good to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice. Yeah, here it is. Dan, just ordered my Coachella Valley tea today. Awesome. Look at that. So
they're really great.
Loving it.
And I'm so glad that so many have, become fans as I am. So.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. You can see that on the screen there. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Mark T for your 10% discount at the end. And congratulations to you and your new holiday blend. You're going to love it. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now... he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
I come from regular stock.
There's a reason that this place is fun. Don't ever use that word.
What are the porn stars doing, Mark?
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
What you say is the political dogma that they're trying to shove down our throats.
Straight up, right in, no problem.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Cuatro años más.
I don't wear a mask for the same reason I don't wear underwear. Things gotta breathe.
Say what?
Do you have a secret talent?
You get nothing.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Did you really just do that?
What up, everybody? It's great to have you here. If you haven't yet, smash that like button like a boss, if you would, please. Yeah, all the thumbs up are important, everybody. Each and every one of you with your thumbs up, important.
It was
what
Janet.
Is this? Janet R says, good morning. Had 2 cups of holiday blend Coachella Valley coffee already today.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And I want to, how about a big shout out? And if I haven't already, let me just give them a big shout out now and a couple of new Patreon members. Maybe you can scroll the way that people can become Patreon members. We're a crowd-funded show, but I really, more than anything, just wanted to give them a shout-out. JR, not Stone, he says. Just became a $25 a month member.
Big shout
at Patreon. Thank you. Wow, that really means
really
a lot.
Nice. Yeah.
Every little bit counts. And JR, not Stone, very cool that you are part of the crew. Also, a shout out to Al. Al just became a $5 a month member. Big shout out to Al. What up, Al? Thank you, my friend. Very cool. And then also on Patreon, I believe I got another. I told you I get these advisories when somebody jumps on when they revise their membership, they edit it. We say membership, their ongoing support. I get a memo, like a little thing saying so-and-so has upgraded their, support from $10 to $20. Then I got one today that Paul has edited his membership from $20 to $10. So that was not the same.
That's all right.
I'll still give him a big shout out.
Big shout out.
For being there with $10 a month. That's great. But really, really cool. All of you who have become part of our community, I will tell you that without you, we're not here. So I never lose sight of that. That's the reason at the end of every show, we scroll everybody's name who's contributed on PayPal and Patreon. And I'm looking forward to a huge PayPal sweep, too. I'll sweep all the PayPal and all the new PayPal members. I'll give you shouts in the days to come as well. Next week, probably early in the week. Am I on Friday? I'm on Friday. We'll do it Friday.
Yeah, we're on Friday.
I'm only missing tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Those are and then we're dark Thursday. That's the thing.
Right.
So, holiday blend is too expensive for Randy. Is that what he's saying? Yeah. Sorry, Coachella Valley Coffee. Dude, he explained yesterday the cost. Yeah. So, thank you. I almost want to put Randy in timeout. How dare he? We explained the entire thing yesterday. That is a fresh crop, hand roasted. But you go ahead. Get that crap that you drink. Yeah, seriously. It's probably a year old, those beans. That's why they can discount them. He already explained it yesterday. How dare you, Randy? How dare you?
He won't berate you for not being a vegan, but he will berate you for your choice of coffee. That's where he draws the line.
Outrageous. Yes. My God, how can you? It's.
I've told you, it's never easy being in this business.
Chris Cuomo gets it. Yeah. Now, let's see. What am I doing? I'm sorry. I'm reading the chat, which is always a bad idea. Tony. Yes. You had told me you discovered something. What is that you've discovered, sir?
I found your New Year's Eve broadcast from the Hacienda.
Oh, you found the New Year's Eve broadcast that we did where we imploded the Hacienda Hotel? Was the Hacienda, I think. What was it?
Sinbad was there, too.
Yeah, Sinbad was the host, and I was the co-host.
Yeah.
And
but I found it.
Here it is. This is what we did at midnight. Okay, so we
got some stuff inside. You better run your butt over there and get it now, all right? I'm telling you, this explosion has got to be one of the most live things that happened. She was off time. This is one of the most exciting moments on television. So take it over to Hacienda. Mark, tell the people what they won. Tell the people what they won.
You wouldn't believe it. It hasn't even started.
Tell them what they won.
It's already started. Look at this. An incredible pyrotechnics display has already begun here. They are bringing this hotel down in just over 2 minutes. And believe it or not, just 3 weeks ago, there were still guests in this hotel, Sinbad. I mean, folks were checking in and out. They were gambling in the casino, and then tonight, we're not going to come. After the show was wrapped, I never saw him again. It's sort of sad. Do you want to get to the part where the hotel collapses, please? Yeah.
Sinbad, let me bring on Michael Buffer.
Oh, Michael Buffer. I didn't forgotten Michael Buffer was. This is great, Tony. Good grab.
There he is, the man.
Does this rival anything you've ever seen?
I have never seen anything like this.
He's never seen anything like it.
There's never been anything like this.
Wait a minute. Go back to that.
It's going to be.
Can we pull that? I don't think it's too noisy to pull it as a draw.
This is electric, and by the time we're done, it's going to be dynamite.
The city is closed.
This is electric.
ever seen?
I have never seen anything like this.
You've never seen anything like it. I'm just saying, nothing in our history.
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
Yeah, go ahead. So here it is. Those are they're detonating all of these charges through the hotel, and now it just comes down. It's immense. I forgot the lighting on it was not so great, I guess. You couldn't, well, I guess you want to be able to see that. I can't hear you, Tim. So this is midnight on the East Coast. We did it at 9 o'clock in Las Vegas. And the whole hotel comes down. Jeez, what a... There it is. Huge in Japan with the
Happy New Year!
I'm surprised they didn't have more lights on the building.
That's what I'm saying. I think the lighting was really, not well thought out. But
no, I think it was done quick, and I think it's like you there probably were seeing it fine, but I'm guessing like the camera just
yeah, it just was too dark. I remember the moment at midnight they had us put on these huge ponchos, I guess is what you'd call them. They were clear ponchos because the dust was so immense. It was like a wall of dust. Yeah, I was saying huge in Japan. Very funny with that comment. Tony rocking the Pantera shirt today. It's noted by BW Rock.
When they through in August, I want to say. Yeah.
The audio levels are good except for Tony. Ironic. I know he's low all day. I don't know.
Thanks, Tony.
Tony is.
Am I low or high?
You're low.
Low.
Let me just say something about Tony while we have a second. I don't know where David Katz is, but Tony is like the kind of person you want working with you. He'll drop whatever he has going on if he can to help you. Mm-hmm. He'll rewire an entire thing overnight. He'll work through the night. This is why KFI abuses him, because he is so available. And he's, so-and-so just called in because they got their shoulder's bad. Tony, can you come in? You go, okay. Yeah, he's there.
Good job.
But
better?
Tony has a certain, but sometimes his levels are all off, and so he's the wrong guy but what I'm trying to say is the technical limitations even affect him. As much of a ninja as he is also affected by technical limitations, aren't you, sir?
In my defense, when I log into StreamYard shows me the level I'm at, and it shows me perfectly where I want to be, like 80% green, just perfect that spot. It's like, so I assume it's right. So I blame StreamYard, not you.
I see. Okay.
Thanks, Tony.
All right.
StreamYard. That's why.
By the way, Kim, I think that's good life advice. We should all be at about 80% green. Don't you agree? I mean, in life generally.
We have to keep 20% in reserves,
just in
case you really need to turn on the gas.
Let's be honest. Even the best of us probably are only 80% green. So,
but is my levels better now?
It sounds better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Or more, because I can push myself up more if I need me to.
Maybe a little bit, but it's okay. All right, Kim. David Katz is
he's scheduled at 12:35.
Oh, so he's not. Oh, I'm sorry. So he's still coming up. Okay, great. Then, with that said, I would like to share one thing that I know. I'm guessing nobody saw this, so I'm going to share it with you now.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The name Viktor Belenko. Does it mean anything to anyone?
No, not me.
Viktor Belenko is a guy who defected to the West in a fighter jet, and he just passed away. It was a clear, late summer day in 1976. A plane pops onto the radar just off the coast of the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido. Just going to turn up this light so I can give you this story. It's kind of a cool story. That's why I mention it. And I've had it here to mention it to you for the last day or so. This plane had been flying 100 feet off the water, low enough to avoid any detection. But now, suddenly, it climbed up to 20,000 feet. Obviously, the pilot wanted to be seen, right? The aircraft flew toward the southwestern port of Hakodate, I guess it is. It circled the airport twice, then prepared to land. The plane, identifiable now as a Soviet fighter jet, nearly collided with a 727 airliner as it touched down. It plowed past the end of the tarmac, blew out its front wheel, and came to a stop not far from a busy highway. As ground crews rushed toward it, the plane's canopy opened. A sturdy blonde man emerged with a gun and fired 2 shots in the air to warn onlookers away. When the authorities arrived, he climbed down to meet the authorities. There he is, a picture of him you can see. His name was Lieutenant Viktor Belenko. He was there to defect. He brought his jet, a supersonic interceptor called a MiG-25. The plane typically stoked fear among Western militaries for years. Now, thanks to Lieutenant Belenko, they had a pristine specimen of that plane to examine. George Bush was the CIA director at the time. You know, the older George Bush. He called it intelligence bonanza. He went on to settle in the United States, Lieutenant Belenko did. Lived in southern Illinois. And he died in southern Illinois at a small town called near Rosebud. Yeah, that's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, but okay.
His son, Paul Schmidt, said that his death, which was not widely reported, came after a brief illness. He was the flower of a communist youth born into proletarian poverty. He'd worked himself up through his career and party ranks to become a member of the country's elite air defense forces, a separate branch from the Soviet Air Force. But along the way, he became disillusioned with the Soviet system. He'd been promised material rewards for his hard work. Instead, despite his elite status, he felt he was being treated like an expendable cog in a creaking war machine. He kept his doubts to himself, so much so that in the early 1970s, he got the choicest of assignments to train on the MiG-25, one of the Soviets' newest weapons. Through the 1950s and 60s, the U.S. and the Soviet Union had fought a high-altitude arms race, building bigger, faster bombers and recon aircraft. The U.S. had the upper hand given the expense and the expanse, I should say, of territory that the Soviets had to defend. Then, in the early 1970s, American intelligence agencies and their allies detected a new aircraft in the Soviet arsenal. That's that MiG-25. And they were quite concerned with it, as were all the NATO allies. Well, in 1980, just to skip along in the story, after his defection, Congress passed an act to give Mr. Belenko citizenship. And he lived as a U.S. citizen for all those years from 1976 on. His marriage to Coral Garas ended in divorce, which is the American way, everyone. Thank you. His son, Paul Schmidt, Mr. Belenko, survived by another son, Tom Schmidt, and 4 grandchildren. And some say that he left a wife and child behind in the Soviet Union, but that's never been confirmed. And it was thought to be Soviet propaganda. After the Cold War ended, he began to make occasional appearances at air shows and returned to calling himself Viktor Belenko. But he never sought to capitalize on his moment of international fame. He lived most of his life privately, said his son Paul. He flew under the radar, said his son, literally and figuratively. Great story, Viktor Belenko. And he dies fairly young, 76, I think is young, but quite the story. So that's the story of Viktor Belenko. I wanted to mention it to you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I have a moment for a news capsule from Kim, and then David Katz, the former federal prosecutor, stops through. Kim, are you good with that?
Yeah, whatever you need.
Okay. Smash the like button like a boss, if you would. Is there anything in the chat that I need to pay attention to? That was 1977. Wow. Is that right? Square says that implosion on the Las Vegas Strip, January 1st, 1997. Is that what I said? 1997. Wow. That was a long time ago.
That takes a lot of guts. I mean, imagine he didn't know if he was going to get shot out of the sky or not. You know?
Oh, you're talking about the, yeah. You're talking about Viktor Belenko. Yeah, absolutely. I thought you meant me standing there as the Hacienda Hotel was imploded. That took a lot of guts.
Yeah, that was very
not
very
not as courageous. You didn't think
and brave.
so? Well,
Yeah,
how
no.
dare you? How dare you?
You're very impressive to me.
Okay. All right, Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Let's start with a tentative deal between Israel and Hamas to release hostages. It looks like it has been reached, according to multiple sources, including a senior U.S. official. The deal would include a multi-day ceasefire. About 50 Israeli and international hostages would be freed in different waves, with more eventually to follow. We'll keep our eyes on this for more information as it comes. Severe storms and snow could fuel Thanksgiving travel issues on this, one of the biggest travel days of the year. The National Weather Service Prediction Center posting on X that there are two main storm systems that will affect the United States, one in the south and the east coast as well. It predicted heavy rain and thunderstorms along the coast up to the mid-Atlantic and a wintry mix possible in New England as well. The minutes from the Federal Reserve's last meeting give no indication of possible rate cuts. The summary of the two-day meeting held October 31st and November 1st, released today, shows officials remain concerned that inflation could still increase. They said the monetary policy will need to remain restrictive in order to get inflation down to the Fed's goal of 2%. There is a judge in Georgia hearing arguments today about possibly revoking Trump co-defendant Harrison Floyd's bail. Prosecutors say Floyd made social media posts that are intentional and flagrant violations of his bond conditions. Floyd is one of the 18 co-defendants in former President Trump's Georgia state case involving interference in the 2020 presidential election. The question is, are they able to treat Floyd differently than Trump? And if Floyd is being busted, right, for flagrant and intentional violations of bond conditions, then could Trump be as well and have his...
It just feels like maybe, I don't know.
Joe Fish, Sal the Shoemaker,
Yeah,
Jim Box, and Little Anthony.
Yeah, those guys don't get any breaks, but Trump is given a break on the... and Mo Black's brother.
Mo Black's brother, Fat Andy.
Yeah. But you're right, and we'll ask David. I mean, you know, the truth is they're lowering the boom on others, but they won't lower the boom on Trump.
Not fair. A majority of Americans are worried about being tricked by scammers. A new Gallup survey shows 57% of respondents either frequently or occasionally worry about falling for a scam or providing access to a financial account. It falls second only to worry about falling victim to identity theft, which concerns nearly 3 in 4 Americans. And lastly, theaters are getting ready for a very busy Thanksgiving weekend. Disney's new animated film Wish and the historical drama Napoleon from director Ridley Scott headline the new releases hitting the movie screens for Thanksgiving weekend. Wish features the voices of Chris Pine and Ariana DeBose. It's expected to bring in $45 to $50 million in its first 5 days.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Napoleon is on track to earn $22 million between Wednesday and Sunday.
Man.
So, yeah.
That Napoleon, well, he's a brilliant actor, that Joaquin Phoenix who's playing Napoleon. I think Will Snyder will probably review it on Friday for us, the Culture Blaster. Yeah.
This report is crowdfunded, which means we do rely on you. Please find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. The Patreon, the PayPal links are all there for your perusal. And of course, the super stickers are open and live here on The Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, happy to be able to move this guy who normally is on Thursday, but of course we're dark on Thursday for Thanksgiving. He's agreed to jump on with us now, the former federal prosecutor, now working the defense table, and he is heard in London, he's heard across Fox News Channel, KCBS Radio, Fox 5 in New York. I mean, it's just, his schedule is insane. So love that he's spending a moment with us. David Katz, everyone.
Yay.
Hi, David.
Hi, happy Thanksgiving. Great to be with both of you.
Yeah, really, really cool, David. So let's just pick up on what Kim was saying before about the situation with, is it Harrison What's his last name, Kim?
Yeah, his name is Harrison Floyd, and he is one of the defendants, one of the 18 co-defendants in the Georgia state case for election interference. And apparently he went online, made some really inflammatory social media posts. The judge says that is an intentional and flagrant violation, and they say they're now the judge is hearing arguments about possibly revoking Harrison Floyd's bond. And it's just interesting how Harrison Floyd, one of the 18 co-defendants, can get busted for a social media post, but Trump keeps going on Truth Social and saying the most horrible things, and can stand on the courthouse steps and yap, yap, yappity yap, and nothing happens. Maybe a $10,000 fine. That's it.
Well, normally a defendant is required to obey all laws, right? And so people get in trouble when they make an inflammatory threat like that. Trump has tried to walk what courts consider a fine line. Whether he stepped over that line, apparently no court has been willing to say so far that he's actually broken the law or committed a criminal violation, what we call an actual threat. The First Amendment has limits, and you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't defame somebody. You can't blackmail or extort somebody and say, oh, well, it was just speech. I was merely speaking words. And you can't make what's called an actual threat. Now, Trump, he says these things like the famous King of England, right? He says, will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest? And of course, in history, soon after the Archbishop of Canterbury was killed. But Trump tries to make subtle comments like that. And one of the things they're dealing with in the gag order that just got argued in the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals yesterday in a very long and interesting argument that was not televised, but it was streamed on radio. It was streamed so you could hear it. They asked that question, that they're going to put some gag order, it looks like, in place. It will be more narrow than the one that the district judge Chutkan put in place and that's been suspended during this expedited appeal period. And that debate of what that's going to be has been really fascinating. And then if he violates that order, he would be in contempt of court. Just one more note, in federal court, normally, if you violate a gag order or you're otherwise in contempt of court, you get a separate indictment and a separate trial. They normally don't handle that. And of course, that would be hugely controversial because that would be a new trial, a new fifth trial for Trump, right? And so he's going to try to walk up to that line, but just guessing what it's going to be, Mark, it looks like they're going to say you can't make inflammatory threats to witnesses short of a criminal violation. You can't break the law. That's clear right now. And that's what this fellow that you're talking about apparently is being looked at right now for simply breaking the law while he was out on bail. That's also state court. So there would be, you can't break the law if you're on bail in federal court. You can't make a true threat. But there'll be something less than that Trump can't do, I believe the Court of Appeals will say, and that is to make inflammatory things that don't rise to the level, but that are things like, will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest? And They won't be true threats, but they'll be the way that he talks. And they'll try to block that because there is a real interest that balances against the First Amendment, which is that there be proper trials and that there not be juror and witness intimidation.
No, you stated so well, but you also allow for what I think is an interpretive aspect to this. When you, even in the likely ruling, the more restrictive ruling that you've laid out, that gag order allows for interpretation, and I guess that's what the court is there for.
Well, there are two possibilities, I think. The Court of Appeals in D.C. will make a more narrow order and they'll put it in place. They'll say, thou shalt not do this, that, and the other thing. That will be fewer thou shalt nots than the district judge said. And people believe that that will not go up to the U.S. Supreme Court. If it looks like that's what they're going to do, those are three appellate judges appointed, selected by Democrats. And so I think that the Supreme Court will think, you know what, this involves Trump. It's so polemic. Let's stay away from this. Let's not review the order that the appeals court, three Democrats sitting on it, comes up with. But then what's going to happen, Mark, is that there'll be a back and forth with the district court, because something will happen. Trump will make a posting, and the special prosecutor will go in and say, hey, wait a second, we think that violates the order, or it's something out of the blue. So they say, we need a new order. We didn't really think that Trump was going to sink to that level. But look at this, Your Honor. You need to make an order that stops him from doing this in the future. So I don't think this will be the last word. I think it will be on this particular gag order, but I don't think it will be the last word. I think people should get ready for the fact that they'll go back to court. There'll be more. This will be an ongoing issue. And remember, the judge is going to try to get this case to trial by March, before the election. And people have said it would change my vote if a jury of his peers found Trump guilty. And so I think that's what the system is heading toward. Trump may protest, but I think unless the Court of Appeals intervenes, this gag order litigation will not delay the trial. I think the only thing that might delay the trial is his so-called presidential immunity, which I think is not a viable claim at all, but there's no precedent for it. So if the Supreme Court wanted to give Trump a delay, I think the way that that would happen, Mark, is that they would take this presidential immunity claim that Trump's making, and that the district judge, I believe, will certainly deny, and I think she'll deny it soon. They'll take it up to the U.S. Supreme Court after they take it to the Court of Appeals, and the U.S. Supreme Court will say, there's no precedent. We need to think about this. And while we're thinking about it, the trial is stayed. That way, the Supreme Court could be viewed as not having kicked it past the election, but they would have, in fact, kicked it beyond the election. Remember how they kicked his tax returns down the road? Remember that? For a couple of years, couple of visits to the Supreme Court, years and years went by. And finally, at the very end of his term, the Congress finally got his tax returns, which showed that he paid so very, very little. And I think in 1 year, remember, Mark, it turned out he was the biggest loser. He lost more money than any other taxpayer in American history, and they want to vault him to the presidency because he's such a business genius. Go figure.
Well, David, that is a great drill down on these gag orders and the way the Supreme Court can, in a way, do nothing but and meaning they don't rule on it, but they put it aside, and by putting it aside, it stops the clock and it helps their benefactor. The voting rights case is the other thing I wanted to mention to you. This seems like a big deal. I wonder if you could explain, because the legal part of this is interesting. It essentially, I think, prevents a lot of these organizations that are concerned with suing on behalf of voters to bring voting rights rulings to pass. It prevents them from those suits.
Okay. Mark, it got very hot in my law office, so if you don't mind.
Please. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, this is a case from the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. The United States is divided up into about a dozen federal courts of appeal, and they sit geographically. This one goes from Arkansas up through the Dakotas, is right smack there in the middle of the country. So this particular case is from Arkansas, and the 8th Circuit there said, and I think these are Trump-appointed judges who said this, or all of them I think are Trump-appointed. They said, you know what? There's no private cause of action under the Voting Rights Act. I think that's remarkable. I think that will go to the U.S. Supreme Court. I know that they have 4 votes. Roberts, I believe, will join in saying this is not the law. There is a private right of action under the Voting Rights Act. And I think that probably Kavanaugh or Barrett will go with those 4. And so I don't think this is going to ultimately be good law. But if it's good law, to me, it completely undercuts the Voting Rights Act. The idea is that these rights to have fair voting, to not have, discriminatory practices. This is a major achievement of the civil rights movement back in the 60s. Before that, there were poll taxes. If you showed up and you were black and you wanted to vote in the southern state, they said, well, you haven't paid your poll tax this year. If you didn't have the money on you, you weren't allowed to vote. Of course, the gerrymandering, which continues on. But there were so many Jim Crow restrictions on voting that the Voting Rights Act was absolutely called for. It was a great piece of legislation. Now, it was cut back in the famous Shelby County case. And in that case, Chief Justice Roberts was one of the ones who actually cut back the enforcement of it. And I think it's interesting to know there used to be what was called pre-clearance, which meant that before one of these 7 or 8 southern states that had a history of denying African Americans their voting rights, before they changed some aspect of voting, they had to get pre-clearance. They had to go to the Department of Justice and say, we're planning to do this. We're planning to do something that's going to end up making mainly black people wait in lines for 4 hours to vote. And then the Department of Justice would say, well, no, you can't do that because that's the effect it's going to have. So no, you can't make that change. But Roberts, along with some others, said, the South has changed so much. We don't really have these problems with poll taxes anymore. It's all good. It's all cured down there. And so it was remarkable because Congress kept voting to extend the Voting Rights Act. Republicans, were in favor of these Voting Rights Act protections, Mark. And yet here the Supreme Court said, no, we don't need it anymore. And people said, what, you guys are political scientists? Why don't you rule on legal cases? That's what you know about. Well, you're going to decide the political science. You're going to decide how much the South has changed in these states. But they did. In doing that, Mark, Chief Justice Roberts says, but look, you could still bring a private cause of action under the Voting Rights Act if the Department of Justice doesn't do anything. Let's say a Republican is in there who likes the fact that this change in the voting bill helps Republicans and doesn't do anything about it. Okay. And so the pre-clearance route is not there, but Alabama goes and changes its law. Georgia goes and changes its law in a way that you think discriminates against black people or diminishes their voting rights. Well, you can always bring a private cause of action, Chief Justice Roberts said. And that's why I think it's very clear that having said my vote in Shelby County is okay, even though I'm getting rid of the pre-clearance for the majority, it's all okay because after all, private citizens, private parties can still bring these Voting Rights Act cases. Now, with the 8th Circuit saying no, private parties cannot bring these voting rights cases, I think that Roberts will not go for that. And I think that he'll get either Kavanaugh or Barrett to go with him, and they will save this private right of action. But what it means is these advocacy groups, Mark, and they often are the ones bringing suit, the advocacy groups like this Arkansas advocacy group on behalf of voting rights, that was the plaintiff here, they were thrown out of court. As things stand right now, they were thrown out of court, not because Arkansas wasn't discriminating, not because they weren't diminishing the votes of black people in an illegal way, but because they didn't have standing. They didn't have a right, supposedly, under the statute to complain about it. And let me just mention one more thing about it. What's interesting is that they kept renewing the Voting Rights Act from 1965 on. As I said, even W and the Republicans voted to extend the Voting Rights Act. That was the old Republican Party. That was not the Trump Republican Party. But since when they did that, they issued a committee report. Both the House, and the Senate said, you know what? It is our intention to allow private groups like advocacy groups to bring cases in federal court in support of Voting Rights Act and to complain about a diminution of minorities' voting rights and to get relief in court. That's our intention. They apparently didn't expressly write that into the statute, but they made clear in extending the statute that that was the intent of both the House and the Senate. So I think that's enough legislative history. I think with Roberts on their side, I think the 8th Circuit decision will not ultimately stand. But it sure is scary. The only one who can sue then is the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Now, you might say, why didn't Biden triple the number of attorneys in the Civil Rights Division? And they could bring 3 times as many suits as they do currently. But apparently that wasn't a priority, or Manchin wouldn't vote for it, or whatever the problem was. When they had all the houses of Congress, they apparently did not pass a bill to have an awful lot more civil rights division attorneys in the Department of Justice. After a while, there are just so many. They can just bring so many cases. The states that are under scrutiny fight back really hard. And so they can only bring the cases that they can bring. And you worry that if Trump, let's say, is reelected, this will not be a big priority, to understate it, to increase the voting rights of minorities, even though they have a right to vote and even though it's illegal to suppress their vote, that the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division under Trump or under whoever the Republican might be after Biden, if that's what fate holds, they won't bring those kind of suits, or they won't bring them aggressively, and then the advocacy groups will be out of court. But I don't think the Eighth Circuit decision is going to stand, scary as it is right now.
This country just does this, everything to choke off the people's voice in every which way. And that's why this Voting Rights Act is so important. Oh, my God, the Voting Rights Act. What did Martin Luther King also march about beside desegregation? Was it all for nothing, says Vilma. Yeah, I mean, it's an essential right? The right to vote, and that's the people's voice. And it can be blunted in so many ways. We talked about it before. It can be blunted based, you can suppress the vote just by removing a lot of polling places. That's what they've done in Texas, and then you do these other things, and then prevent the public and public interest groups from bringing suit. By the way, it's true, David, polemic is a ding word, and so is diminution. Thank you. Now, I want to ask you about a statute of limitations thing that's a little far afield from what we're talking about, but it's just so weird. This just happened. The Bill Cosby accuser, okay, the one who brought the first case, she has now filed a new lawsuit under the New York survivor's law. They've changed the statute of limitations, I believe, in New York, such that sexual assault doesn't have that tight time frame of the statute of limitations. Can you speak to this whole statute of limitations thing? I realized as I read it, maybe I don't understand statute of limitations. Some things have statute of limitations, some things don't. I know, there's no statute of limitations on murder and some other things. I wonder if you could just help me recalibrate.
There are some technical arguments about an extension of the statute of limitations after it's run, and I don't want to get into all of that. Let's assume for a second that this is lawful, and that the courts are not going to strike down any of these convictions because they find that the statute is defective, because this extension of time is not proper under people's rights. But let's assume that it is. So legislatures, after the Me Too movement especially, and the New York legislature decided to say, you know what, you can bring these very old claims during this 1 year window. And we're about a week, I think, away from the closing of the 1 year window. So for the attorneys who want to bring them on behalf of claimants, this is about the last week. And so that's why we're seeing a flurry of them before the window closes on this 1 year statute of limitations. There are two arguments why a statute of limitations for something other than, murder or a case like that are a good idea. And the arguments for a statute of limitations, which are statutes, legislatures pass them. They could have not passed them, but they passed them all over the country. They passed them pretty much all over the world. I mean, there's certainly a feature of Anglo-American jurisprudence. And the idea, one, is repose, that even if you've done something wrong, again, murder, you don't get any repose. But the idea is that after a while, you have repose. It's over. You've been subject to the statute of limitations for a period of time, and now you have some repose. These legislatures decided that for these kinds of sex crimes, there should be no repose. The other argument is the difficulty of proving them, just the evidentiary thing. The idea is that you're going to get a lot of very unfair verdicts if you don't have a statute of limitations. And of course, I believe this case with Cosby goes back decades. I mean, literally decades. And so there's, some people say, well, wait a second, if you remember it, you remember it. And if you, something that traumatic, Cosby ought to remember it and ought to be able to defend himself. But there certainly is the argument, Mark, that it's just so long after it happened, you can't get evidence anymore. You can't get records. If it comes down to a he said, she said, it's still I think some of them are criminal cases. The civil cases are a preponderance of the evidence. So if it's a preponderance of the evidence and it's a 50-year-old claim and someone says it happened and the civil defendant says it didn't happen and the jury believes the civil plaintiff a little bit more than the defendant, like believes her a little bit more than they believe Cosby, they're going to return an award. And of course, once there's an award against a very rich person, it can be a very large award.
And I suppose that's one of the reasons she's bringing it to as a cold slap in the face to him. I mean, she was violated, and she feels the need to, keep rattling his cage.
These are allegations, Mark. These are allegations. Someone can make an allegation, right? That She's making an allegation in court.
But the reason I state it sort of not as an allegation, David, wasn't he found liable in the case that they threw out with? You understand what I?
But I believe that was to other people, and I could be wrong on that. But if you know that he was found, that the allegation by her was upheld somewhere. But I think that she sued in Massachusetts or something. There's some backstory to this whole thing, and it may be that the allegation has been shown. I'm just saying, as a general matter, even though it's a very serious offense, still you have to, I think, give the benefit of the doubt always. Obviously, in a criminal case, you're presumed innocent, and I think it's fair to say in a civil case, you're certainly presumed not liable until somebody proves in court, that you are liable.
Fair enough. She was one, they suggest, among the first accusers to make these accusations, to speak publicly about Cosby. She met him when she was 19 and just breaking into comedy. She did sue in Massachusetts. Again, great knowledge from David Katz. And she was among 7 women who filed defamation claims after Cosby branded them liars. This is a new lawsuit. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, you speak so, it's no wonder you're a defense attorney now. You speak so well, to be fair to someone who probably, let's face it, got away with a lot of stuff. I'll say that. You don't have to say it. And Cosby was not a good guy when it came to this stuff. David, I do want to tell you, we're so grateful. We have so much fun with your conversations. They're so enlightening, and they have a dynamic, an intellectual dynamic and a factual dynamic that just adds another layer to the show. And I'm so grateful. And thank you for moving this time this week so we could share some time with you. And we give thanks for you this year. Thank you, my friend.
Mark, if I could just say for a moment, I really enjoyed being with you and Kim. And, the irony was that when you had that wonderful radio show of yours, I was never on the radio show. But after the demise of the station that shall not be named, you were gracious enough to invite me on. And the first time I was ever on your show was, I believe you already had the podcast. And then I was on with Pat Thurston quite a bit. And I'm on with her on KCBS from time to time. They ought to give her more time. If you're listening out there, you ought to give Pat Thurston more time, because we cover some of these issues, but we have about 6 minutes on the KCBS in the Bay Area. But with you, we can really, drill down on them, and we get to cover some of the great legal events of the day. You know how much I enjoy commenting on the U.S. Supreme Court. I followed it ever since I was in law school. And I try to sort of tell it like it is, Mark, like I say, not right, not left, just right, not wrong. And my attitude, Mark, is if you came to my law office and you said to me, it really matters to me to know how this case is going to come out. Would you analyze this case and tell me, how do you think it's going to come out? I try to tell your listeners and viewers how I think the case is going to come out. Somebody wrote one time and they said, it's so great and so depressing to hear David Katz, because some of the cases like, Dobbs, some of the cases like this 8th Circuit case, we seem to have one about every other week that, I'm grinding my teeth, but I'm telling the people what the two sides of the argument were and how it came out, or how I think the appeal of it, or how some future trial will come out.
The battle in the courts may determine the future of this country in many ways, certainly the character of the country. So you couldn't be more front and center. Well,
Happy
you're right.
Thanksgiving to you guys.
Yeah, thank you. We grabbed you. I saw it as one of the great opportunities in that awfulness that was that radio station going away, was that you became a free agent and that I could scoop you up. So really a lot of fun. I see something here. I'll share it with you. I can't quite read it without my credibility. Guys, Katz is one good thing that came out of the end of the radio show. Yeah, BW Rock is right. So thanks, David Katz.
Had a mind meld with you, Mark. They had the exact same thought about
exactly the same thought.
That's the mind meld.
Katzadamus. See you, David Katz.
Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone.
You too, my friend.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Yeah, BW Rock has it right. He says, appreciate a dry take on the law. It should be an emotionless analysis. Right on, Mr. Katz. Yeah. David is, he's a treasure. Pat will come on. By the way, someone was asking about Pat Thurston. She will be on in the new year, so looking forward to that. Maybe you can get her on before the new year, Kim, but I'm sure she'll be on in the new year. Yeah. I've been in touch with her. So
why don't we call lawyers
Shadow producer
doctors?
Calvin Wong asking, what?
Why don't we, I mean, they have a Juris Doctor. Why don't we say Mr. Katz instead of Dr. Katz? I just wonder. Because he technically has a doctorate, right?
He has a law degree. I don't know if he has a doctorate or not, but
he's a Juris Doctor.
We can call him whatever you'd like, Kim.
Okay.
If you, I'm no.
Kim, how are you?
I am. If you feel his title as you feel that somehow in the lavish praise on this incredible contributor every week, it's not sufficient. You want to add his title?
In general, I just wondered that.
All right. Well, I don't know. We could discuss it with David.
Yeah.
David Katz is great, says Gail. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Gail is Hall of Fame, and David Katz is Hall of Fame.
Right.
So they are both in different HOF category. And Katzadamus, indeed, says shadow producer Calvin Wong. David Katz Esquire, says James Walton. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could do that. Maybe we'll add the Esquire if that's what you'd like. Kim, maybe you would like to put that on the little super that we put under him, Dr. David Katz Esquire, if you would, maybe you could add that. I like it. Tony, the clock on the wall says we have to wrap up, right?
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
Sad. We've done a lot today. Started hot with Pulitzer Prize winner David Cay Johnston, and we finished hot with David Katz Esquire. And I, in the middle, revisited the implosion of the Hacienda Hotel. I'd forgotten Michael Buffer, the guy who's like, let's get ready to rumble guy, was there. And I thought we covered a lot of territory. So, do you have anything more before I leave, Kim? Before I leave this?
I'm going to miss you tomorrow, but we're going to bring on John Rothman. We're going to talk politics, and tomorrow's going to be a great day. And then we have Thanksgiving, and you're back on Friday.
I love it. You stated it well.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Kim is going to be doing it herself, Larry, tomorrow. Yeah, something special. John Rothman, maybe there'll be another guest. Who knows? Then we're back live on Friday, dark on Thanksgiving.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Yeah. Wishing you the best. TG.
Thanksgiving.
Mark. Wishing you the best Thanksgiving, Mark. Gonna miss you. Thank you, Square, for a little love for me. Pinky, the super sticker, and thank you for $1 a day.
Big shout out.
Thanks to everybody who has supported us. Great, wild, mad-ass thanks to all of you who've been part of this effort to support us. I've met too many Christians who truly believe Christianity is the only truth for life. Isn't that religious zealousness?
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Johnson Show.
Scott,
bye-bye.
Thank you for
Big
that.
shout out.
I will pick up on that on Friday. We talked a little bit about it to start the show. See you tomorrow. Until then, bye-bye.